Welcome to Bleeding Edge Interviews, where you get to know the people making great modern progressive rock and metal just a little bit better. It's the same music you would hear on Live 365 on my channel, The Expanse. I'm Super Dave. I'm your host. Thank you for joining me once again. There aren't many artists that I've had on my show multiple times. One of the most prominent bands that I've had on my show would be Haken. And one of their most prominent members, their lead singer, Morse Jennings, was kind enough to join me once again. Now, Haken has got a great big tour coming up really soon, and Ross has a project he's been working on with the inimitable Neil Morse and Nick DiVirgilio, of course called DiVirgilio, Morse and Jennings, DMJ for short. So with both of those things happening in the very near future, Ross and I sat down, had a little chat about both of them, as you might expect. So here we are, my interview with Ross Jennings of Haken and DiVirgilio, Morse and Jennings, as well as others, right here.
Speak to you again.
Yeah, it's good to speak to you again. Good to see you. How you been doing, my friend?
Yeah, great. Busy with family life, really, and there's been a lot of touring this year with Haken, so
A little bit.
I've been keeping very busy.
Yeah, you guys have been seemingly almost endlessly touring this year. I feel like this, just now you're finally getting about almost your first break of any extended period since the year started almost, right?
Yeah, it's been a full-on year. We've given that this band has been going for over 10 years, it's really only this year we've done our first proper festival season.
Wow.
Across the Europe. And I mean, yes, we've played the odd prog festivals here and there. We've done maybe a week of shows in the summer before, but never to the extent that we have this year, where we really hit up a lot of festivals. And so it's been great putting ourselves in front of new faces, new ears, and showing people that, who we are.
It really feels very much like you said, you guys have been around for 10 years, but it feels like this year you really kind of broke, and it became like when I read about new bands having debut albums out this year, and they're saying things like, oh, they're very much in the vein of Dream Theater and Haken.
Right.
And you guys are now sort of established as that comparative standard that other bands may be measured against. But that really says a lot.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Mind blowing. So I guess Fauna was pretty well received by the public.
I think so. Yeah, it's always hard to gauge these things from the inside out,
Right.
We're really proud of it. We think it's a great record, and glad that it resonated. There was some curveballs in there as well, but really, I feel like that record represents everything that Haken stood for up to now.
I think one of the things I enjoyed most about it was just the variety of tones and not styles, the word I'm looking for, but textures and tempos and the variation throughout. It was all Haken, but it was all different aspects of Haken on display, and it really that level of variety really works well for me. And it really, it's my favorite thing you guys have done at this point.
Thank you. Yeah, a friend of mine kind of described it as a greatest hits without any of the hits.
It's a nice description. I like that. And it's, and even all the way to the album cover, like that already ranks as one of my all-time favorite album covers. It's such a cool colors and tones and variety, and again, it's like the album itself, there's so much going on and there's so much to find in there, just in the picture. So kudos for like the total package to you guys on that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was kind of a callback to all those really intricate hand painted album covers back in the 80s, like Marillion covers and stuff that kind of Megadeth used to put out and things like that. So it's like it's kind of a homage to that world, I guess.
Actually makes me curious, a stray thought, but I have to imagine you guys probably came up with a name for the chimpanzee and the well-dressed dapper dude on the cover there, didn't you?
No, I'm
No.
sure we'll run a competition at some point to name the guy.
I guessed wrong. I
Or
thought for
girl.
sure, I'm like, these guys
Yeah.
have a name for him, I'm certain. Oh, that's funny. So, but it's, I guess the roads treated you well. It was an enjoyable tour despite all the running around and all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Like really happy with how it's gone this year. We did an extensive tour of Europe
Yeah.
just before the album came out, and it actually was released when we were halfway through the tour, and that was kind of a thing with Between the Buried and Me. It was great fun to go out with those guys,
Yeah.
and that was about 7 weeks of touring. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then we had a little break, about a month, and then we headed out to the US and did our thing there. And yeah, it went down really well. Such a successful tour. So happy with how it went. And we just got back from, obviously we did the festival season after that, and then we just got back from the South American leg, or Latin American leg, I should
Nice.
say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I gotta
that
say,
was phenomenal. Yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Any particular highlights along the way for you? Any fun stories?
Oh boy. I mean, let me think. I don't know. It was all pretty clockwork, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm never good at thinking of these things on the spot. I'm sure some fun stuff happened.
No worries.
But yeah, it was all good.
I will say the crowd in Philly here was very, very enthusiastic when I saw you. A couple of folks next to me
All right.
were quite how they had the energy to essentially be jumping the entire set list is beyond me. These young kids, but you guys, I think, represent the very first time I was at what would be characterized as a prog concert where a mosh pit broke out.
Yeah.
Which was like, wow, holy smokes, you guys were just banging and they were loving it. So
yeah, we tend to
was,
span quite a wide audience demographic,
yeah.
Which is great. You know, it means there's some longevity in it.
Yeah, indeed.
And that we're appealing to a wide audience is only helping us, really. So
yeah, truly. So this one coming up that's just been announced now, of course, will be, to my knowledge, your first evening with tour. So it's going to be all Haken all night, which is very, very cool. And of course, the great thing is we get to hear all of Fauna, which I love, because I will say I was missing the Alphabet of Me in that set list in Philly. I really wanted to hear that. But how does that, I mean, other than the obvious, how does that change up your approach to planning and all, then putting the event together?
So we're going through that now. One of the biggest points, obviously, is we tend to usually play for about an hour and a half.
Right.
And for the majority of our audience, that's not enough. And there's always those songs that people want to hear, those epic songs.
Yeah.
Like Visions or Crystallized and things like that, which would get left out because there's simply no time to squeeze everything in. So we're making sure we sort of cover a lot more of our catalog, as well as doing Fauna in full, and there'll be something represented from every album. And it kind of reminds me of when I used to go and see Dream Theater do these evening withs, and that's sort of a big inspiration for what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But we're thinking about what the production side of things is going to look like, and how we might structure all that. So it's going to be quite different from the regular sort of shows that you've seen us do.
Yeah.
Looking to put a bit more production value into things, and we're really excited to, play for 3 hours.
Yeah, that'd be very, very cool. So that you don't get to see a lot of those, and bands have to reach a certain stature before they're at that point, where they can fill that time, and people are going to buy tickets to see them fill that time. So, I imagine that in and of itself may feel for the band like a bit of an achievement unlocked.
Yeah. Completely. Yeah. Really excited. Yeah.
I do love the advertising for it as well. The fact that you got the Disney vibe there, where now the character from the Fauna cover is now basically King Louis. That
there we go.
It's a great idea. I think what I enjoy about that is that you guys have that sense of humor about yourselves, that sense of playfulness that a lot of bands don't have, or at least don't appear to have. I think a lot of the bands that seem to be like super serious and, always the heavy thinkers and all that actually have a lot of fun behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But you guys let that come out, very much in a lot of what you do. And especially this tour, again, between the Fauna album cover, now the evening with advertising, and the amazing Hawaiian shirts.
It can be hit or miss with humor,
Yeah,
obviously, and we're not shy about showing people who we are as people,
yeah.
So that's why that shines through. It can be a detriment sometimes. I know a lot of fans just don't want to accept that stuff, and they're just all about the music and the serious business. But
Yeah.
we're here to have fun too. It's entertainment, folks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I did hear some people griping. I'm not sure they should be wearing those Hawaiian shirts. I'm like, dude, let them rock them. It's awesome. You should sell those things.
Yeah, well, we did.
Did you? I missed that.
But I think there was some delay with the orders, so the first part of the tour in the US didn't have them on the stand. But eventually, I think so halfway through, we got them in stock. And yeah, they sold very well. I'm sure we'll bring them back around again.
There you go. I'll be all over that. My girlfriend will hate it, but every time I put anything that looks like a Hawaiian shirt on, she looks at me and goes, "Why? Why are you doing this?" That's cool. I look forward. Maybe I'll get a chance to grab one of those. So obviously, other than the fact that you guys are now going to include all that extra stuff, I'm kind of curious. I want to ask do you have any particular surprises planned for people? But I don't want you to give them away. So it's probably a silly thing to ask, but I guess I'm just curious what things you can share with us in advance that might be really cool besides the playing of Fauna in its entirety.
It's still early days, but the format is going to be much like an expected 2 halves, but I don't think there's anything I can give away yet at this point. But really, like, it's exciting for people who want to hear a lot more music and a lot more of our catalog and some deep cuts and some songs that we haven't played in a while. So it's that's the fun part.
Yeah, indeed. So that's awesome. Yeah, I very much got the tickets. We're ready to roll. Looking forward to seeing that and
awesome.
Getting a full night of Haken.
Yeah.
Every time, not almost every time. I was going to say last time you guys obviously were headlining, so my memory skipped for a moment there, which it will tend to do. My memory is weird. It's Swiss cheese at times. So anyway, very cool. I look forward to seeing all that. I'm very excited for it. And in the meantime, somehow you fit in a whole other project while you were touring and have managed to now be coming out with the sophomore effort, if I can somewhat use a pun almost, of DiVirgilio, Morse, and Jennings, which I'm going to shorten to DMJ because I stumble every time I try to say that. And that's due out on the 7th of November, I think, yes?
10th.
10th. I was close.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking to about humor again, that was a kind of a tongue-in-cheek title that we came up with. Yeah, I mean, what do you call a second record? We struggle with names. I mean, you can tell by the band name. I think like DMJ is what we tend to refer to it as, but I think Neil calls it the trio, and
the trio.
And so yeah, it's quite a long one. It's a reference to Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I guess.
Sure. Which is, I think, is a fair one, listening to that first album especially, and even this second album, that the vocal harmonies are on par. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the influences are there. Yeah. But there's a lot more to this new one, I think. I think there's a few more different ideas that have come through into our songwriting, and it's again continues on the theme of being a very fun singer-songwriter style record, but with the emphasis on the acoustic nature, and the vocal harmonies really is the the selling point of this project. And it's a great record, great fun listen, in my opinion. But this was all done, you say, like, fitting this in, but I was recording this a year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's crazy how long it takes
Yeah.
to get stuff
Okay.
through the system and into vinyl, and then there's a whole scheduling of things. Plus, it had to work with things we were releasing ourselves, like Neil's Joseph project was coming out, and so we put it back a bit. And yeah, it's tricky to balance these things, but we're pleased it's finally out. I feel like it's more of a summer record, so it's kind of weird to be coming out in the winter, but but you'll have it all through Christmas and into next summer. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that you say that, I guess I can hear that idea of it being a bit of a summer album more than it would be a winter album.
I don't know. It could be just me. I just get sunshine vibes from this kind of music. Personally.
Sure. All the acoustics and the harmonies and all that stuff. It's a little bit more for sunshine and top down in the car for those that have it.
Sure.
Yeah. And I noticed, and I think you said it's got some extra twist in it this time. I picked up on, I feel like you guys are pushing a little bit more around the edges and bringing out a little more of a grit, a little more of rock edges to things, and at the same time, a couple songs a little bit stronger country influence and all that. It felt like you were pushing away a little bit more from the blend and coming out and showing those influences individually a little bit. Is that something that was intentional or conscious when you were doing it?
Hard to say. Not really conscious. I mean, of course, we're all conscious what we're doing, but there wasn't a strategy with that stuff. It was really just, hey, let's make another record. Let's all come up with some songs and see what the strongest ones are, and get them in an order that works, and let's do it. It wasn't really too much thought gone into through all that. This project for us is really just about kind of approaching it with a bit more fun and relaxation and enjoyment. And it's really all from the heart and not too much from the head.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the impression I've gotten, I think, to a large extent, given the complexity and the intensity of the things that you and Neil especially do in your primary projects, that this is more of an opportunity to just kind of chill and relax a little bit, and just dial down the intensity. And I think I've seen one reviewer describe the union of the three of you as like businessmen let out to go for recess and play on the playground a bit. And I thought, that's a good description. I like that image.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that. I guess so. Like you said, it's a nice respite from the intensity of our main projects.
Yeah.
And we're all songwriters, and there's different approaches and different styles of music we like to honor. And that's really what it's about. There's no point doing the prog metal stuff in this project because that's not what it's for. We could just do that. Oh, I've got delivery.
Oh, cheers. Having my coffee as well. There you go.
So it's a very rewarding project for me to be part of this.
Yeah, it seems like it's a good bit of fun. And I imagine, as with most things, like after having that first go round, and now you've established that familiarity among the three of you, or at least among you and the two of them, because I'm sure they were already pretty familiar with one another. They'd worked together before. How did that change the dynamic at all this time around?
There's a lot of trust, really, and I'm given the opportunity just to share my music with those guys is a blessing in itself, really, and the fact that they're excited about it and want to perform on it, and it's very rewarding. And I think that's the main word to use. Like, that we just trust each other with the songs that we're putting forward, and you get a great blend in the end. Everyone's supporting each other.
Yeah,
well, that's what a band should be.
Yeah, really. When it's working at its best, right?
Yeah.
And it's in some ways those of us that get to listen to it, it's a little bit of a blessing as well, more than a little bit. But it's just the idea that as busy as Neil is, as busy as Nick is, and as busy as you become, you're honestly becoming almost as ubiquitous as they are at this point. Because every time I turn around, hey, wait, there's Ross again. Hey, there's Ross again. You're all over. And as you mentioned, I don't think I picked up on whether you were involved in the first half, but I did pick up on the fact that you were involved in the second half of Neil's Joseph project. So
I wasn't involved in the first half, no.
Okay, good. I didn't miss it. It wasn't happening.
he found a character for me.
He found a character for you.
So yeah, it's just a small role, really. On a feature on a couple of tracks.
Oh, okay. What's the character?
It's the character of, I don't know if I can reveal much, but it's the character of a butler.
A butler, okay.
So it feels very appropriate being English and everything. to be typecast as a butler. I like that.
Fair enough. That's awesome though. For me, I love to see that. It seems a long-standing tradition in the world of progressive rock, going back to the 70s, where there was a lot of moving in and out, and people changing bands and moving around, and forgive the term, but a bit of an incestuous thing where people were constantly changing and replacing and blah blah blah. But a lot of times, some of that always seemed like somebody's left the band and now they joined some other band, and it seemed a little bit, maybe at times acrimonious. I'm sure at times it wasn't. But these days, there seems to be this expansive collaboration that goes on, where you've got people that are in various different bands, but they're getting together to do other things. You've got Roy Stolt and Pete Trewavas, joining in for Transatlantic. And there's, of course, Neil Morse and Mike Portnoy. And then Neil goes off and he does something, and Mike Portnoy goes off and does Flying Color. Well, they're both in Flying Colors. You can hardly separate the two until this week. But there's just all this blending, and you just see all these various people, kind of moving together. And it just seems like there's this big community. And you're firmly a part of that big community where, there's this ongoing getting together, collaborating, doing stuff, then going back to your main gigs and all that. Like, that seems pretty cool to me. And I guess I wonder what it's like for you as you really start to become one of those mainstays.
Well, I'm honored to be even mentioned among some of these names, but because 20 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be on a record with Neil and Nick, I'd be like, crazy. No, never gonna happen. Because I grew up as a big fan of all these groups and names that you've just mentioned, and so it feels amazing that our music that we've made, inspired by those forefathers, I should say, has resonated with the community. And and then we've all been picked to sing on other records or play guitar solos on other records, as is the case with Rich and Charlie. And that sense of community is fantastic. It's important, and it's important for musicians to branch out as well. I should add, like, staying stagnant in your one genre or your one gig, it actually can be frustrating, as much as rewarding. But musicians need to put their hands in different things. I think it's very important to the longevity of your career, and building that sense of community and networking with others that basically going through the same thing as you.
Speaking on a fan perspective, it's for us, it's one of those cool things, because there's a little game you play sometimes. What do you think would be a great band, or what do you think would be your fantasy band? And next thing you know, a bunch of you guys got together and you did it. So we're blessed with these variations of mixes of artists that we enjoy, putting together different kinds of music. So I mean, that's what's great, because how easy would it have been in many ways for you and Neil and Nick to put together another prog band, or like another version of a transatlantic kind of thing or whatever. And instead, you guys went a different direction.
I wouldn't see the point.
Yeah.
you know, if I was writing prog metal stuff for this, I'd be keeping it for Haken. You know, it wouldn't feel right. You know, I feel like every project I do has to be very distinctive from one another. Yeah, for me, this record is about, you know, just being less. There's a lot of serious business when it comes to listening to music in our genre, I believe, and it's sometimes nice just to have that music that's on, just on, and just enjoy it. Put it on in the car, go for a ride, do some work at home, or you know, have it on in your workplace, and it's just something that's enjoyable and just a little bit different to the radio stuff. You know, just a little break from Taylor Swift. You know?
I feel you, because for me, it's one of those things where when I go to something, when I like, if I got to go to a certain kind of music and it's maybe the only thing I can have, I'm probably going to listen to something that is harder edged and progressive. That's generally been my tendency. And you know what? On a Sunday morning when it's quiet and I'm having my coffee, I'll, you know, grab Spotify and throw on an acoustic playlist. And what you guys are doing would fit right in there.
Yeah, I think it's a bridge between the two, honestly.
Yeah. So it's, and I wonder too, because I've heard at times artists who are associated primarily with prog express some frustration with the fact that when they have an inclination to move out of that and do something that some might call more commercial, some might call more pop oriented, whatever, that's not prog essentially, that they get some blowback from fans about the fact that they've done that. And, you know, like they get frustrated that, hey, look, you know, like, yeah, I love to do progressive stuff and maybe metal oriented stuff, but at times I want to do something different, you know, and they get frustrated with feeling like they've been pigeonholed. I'm wondering if you've ever experienced anything like that yourself when you do things like this.
I think luckily Haken have been eclectic enough in our own catalogue that I haven't really fallen into that pigeonhole, I don't think, or my status is not that big enough. So when you look at Stephen Wilson or Opeth or you know, people of that ilk, of that stature, any shift in style and any blowback from that is going to explode on a bigger magnitude, on a bigger scale. So for me, I'm lucky enough to sort of be at that point where I can actually throw my net at different genres, and it still works because I guess I'm not that big enough to really cause any drama, any blowback. But no, honestly, if it's done genuinely, people will hear that. If it's authentic, you know. And I think that's the beauty of this DMJ thing. It feels really authentic, and it is really authentic, and that will shine through in the music. So that, you know, the fact that there's no 20-minute pieces on there or nothing with any tangents or crazy time signatures. I know there's a few references to prog on this, obviously, but but yeah, it's done with a lot of care and love and passion and authenticity. So I think that shines through, and I think there's no issues there.
That's cool to hear. I think maybe you're right in that sense too, that the amount of blowback will be in some way proportionate to the amount of influence, or I guess the amount of longevity that a band might have, or influence, or whatever you want to say. In your sense, doing your solo album and doing this, you may have done it just at the right time to avoid some of that stuff, because people now already go, okay, well, we know Ross is capable of doing these kinds of things, and then Charlie and his project, and Rich, what he's been doing, we know what they're doing, like they are already doing other things. And you're probably right. The upside of Haken is that they have been eclectic enough in many ways that maybe it's not so surprising for a lot of people.
We came off the bat doing circus music.
Fair enough, right? Yeah. And it's always kind of been there. So But I'm curious because then it's like a funny thing, the idea that somebody somewhere would say fans of progressive rock or progressive metal or whatever would get fussy about somebody expanding their horizons, because to me that's progressive. Even if
Yeah.
you went from something that's longer in form and more complex and all that to something that's simpler, if it's something where you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, that's progressive.
Yeah.
That's doing something different.
But there's always that differentiation between progressive and prog, which is very much a sound and a genre that's pinpointed to, I guess, one particular period of time.
Yeah.
But that's a whole debate.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly, I agree with you. Absolutely.
It's a downside of labels. It certainly is. It's at the same time, it's not like anybody just came out with a Taylor Swift style pop song either. So like Crosby, Stills, and Nash style music isn't exactly what one would consider pop by today's standards, but God willing, maybe you guys hit something big with that and you strike a chord, because that's always a possibility. I think of something now like Jelly Roll, and he's got a song out there that sounds like somewhere between rock and country, and he's got a big hit out of it, which I wouldn't have seen that coming myself, but it's here it is. It's happened.
Well, you never know with these things. I don't think anyone's really trying hard to hit a big hit with this stuff, which is again why this feels so authentic. And if anything like that does happen, then that's phenomenal.
But, it's kind of nice to be able to be successful doing exactly what you love doing. And making it the way you want to make it without having to compromise that. So, from my perspective, and it's one of those questions that comes to mind at times, like sometimes I wonder if people worry, well, I'm pushing this way or I'm pushing that way into this style. Am I getting too far away from my core sound? Do I want to do that? And I almost feel like I think I know your answer is going to be no, you're not worried about doing that.
I don't have a core sound.
Right.
My core sound is my voice.
Yeah.
If I lose that, I'm screwed. But for now, any style of music I put out will have that stamp, and that's my safety net, I guess.
Yeah. It's good to have that, because the one thing that you don't have to worry about. Well, I almost going to say a couple things like, oh, you don't have to worry about losing it or breaking it. No, I guess you can. You can do that to a voice, but at the very least, nobody's going to steal it out of the back of the truck one day when you're touring.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
I was trying to make a comparison there, and I realized every analogy I was going for was wrong until I finally found one. Dig hard enough, Dave, you'll get that analogy. So between now and I think it's March is when March is when I'm seeing you, but the tour might start in February.
Yeah, I actually fly out on my birthday.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
February 7th, I think it is. And we'll be doing some rehearsals somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the tour kicks off from early Feb. I think it's the 10th. It's the first show.
Nice. So how do you plan to spend the time off?
From now till then?
Yeah. Or is there no time off?
I'm in full family mode right now. So I'm full-time dad and doing some photography work, and I'm going to be piecing together a second solo album wherever there's time. There's very, very little spare time for me at the moment. Wow. So I'm hoping to kind of put that together next year at some point.
Yeah.
Nice. But for now, it's all about Fauna, the touring, this baby here. And
there you go.
Yeah, I really hope it resonates with people and people get some enjoyment out of it for sure.
No doubt. I've heard all of it, and if people enjoyed the first album, they'll enjoy this album equally as much, at least, and maybe even a little bit more, because again, I think there's some little areas there where the rock comes out a little harder, the country comes out a little clearer. So it's it's not a plain and simple redux. It is, God forbid I use the word redux right after the whole Dark Side of the Moon thing. It's not a whole redo of what you did before. It's not a rehash. It's more and new and different.
Yeah, it's a continuation. It's a growth.
Yeah.
It's the three of us having learned a little bit more about each other on the first record, just
Yeah.
exploring what we can do together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the great part, because it sounds like then obviously you're enjoying it enough to do a second one very
Mm-hmm.
soon after the first one.
Yep.
And that suggests to me you guys are enjoying it enough that we can expect a third and future ones where you'll continue to expand on that DMJ sound, I hope.
Yeah, I would sure hope so. And adding to that, we'll have discussions about if there's demand for it to take this out on the road. Maybe.
Oh, sure.
We'll see.
That would be great.
I think we'd all be up for that.
Yeah. You need like a cozy little thing there, just the three of you and stools and guitars, and
Yeah. Could
or
be fun. Yeah.
I guess one of you on drums. That would be awesome. So yeah, I would be there for that. And I did not know you were into photography. You just dropped that. I almost let that slip my brain. You do it a lot? You into it?
So it used to be a real passion,
Yeah.
like in my early teens, I should say, or late teens. I'm essentially a freelance photographer. I have been for many years,
Wow.
but I've been doing it less and less
Sure.
as the band's grown. So from 2010 onwards, my photography has been less, but I still dabble into it here and there. But with all these things, when you make your hobby a job, sometimes you can lose the passion out of it a little bit, and that kind of happened to me. So I don't really advertise myself too much, but I want try and keep some of that, retain some of that hobbyist nature of it,
Sure.
if I can. But
I get it.
But yeah, the focus shifted to being a musician and a singer, and taking Haken to the next level. So.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of work to be ubiquitous, sir.
Sure.
So, I asked about that because I dabble in the photography as well, and so I just was curious, what you've been doing. What are your favorite subjects?
I don't really do much outside of working with people, so it's portraiture and capturing events even and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the bread and butter work. I'd even go to concerts and photograph shows, and that's like the passion part for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been able to get out as much as I once did just to go out and take pictures. I kind of always have an eye on for something, and I'll pull it out. That's why I finally got a really expensive phone, so I could always have a good camera with me. And I used to carry the camera bag with me on travels, when I went on holiday and all that, until I got tired of having to deal with the camera bag on my shoulder and changing the lenses and this, that, and the other. And, once in a while you get in a castle, because UK is usually where I'm at, and the castles is where I'm going. And, all of a sudden you got this tight spiral staircase, and the bag's a pain in the rear, and banging into people with it. And I finally, I'm like, that's enough. I'm not doing this anymore. So my primary thing at this point is grabbing whatever great shots I can at concerts.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which is fun and challenging.
But yeah, the phones have become, I would never replace the DSLRs with the phones, but
sure.
But they're so good now, and the imagery that you can capture on an iPhone is mind blowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the future of photography is it's just in a strange place, as is the music industry. Like I've chosen the two sort of areas of work that are in demise, but
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was going to say there's two areas where I can imagine there's fewer things out there that have had more growth technologically speaking than phones, cameras, and music. Because like at this point in time, it's the norm to hear people talking about the fact that they're recording their parts in different places of the world, even emailing them to one another, and then somebody's mixing them all together. Like I've heard entire projects done that way, where people were never in the same room together. COVID forced it, but it was probably coming eventually anyway. And it's probably one of the reasons we're lucky enough to be able to have so much Haken and Ross Jennings and DMJ and Neil Morse music in such a short span of time, because you don't all have to congregate in one place.
It's true. Yeah, that's a great advantage of the
Yeah.
technology we have now. Yeah. So it is swings and roundabouts with these things.
Yeah.
And DMJ is a product of what you're talking about. You know,
Right.
both of these records, we weren't in the same room together when they were recorded.
Yeah.
But it's worked.
Yeah. Like, I like Neil's story about the fact that he had no idea how good the vocals were going to sound together until the mix put them all in there. It's like he knew everybody was going to sound good
Right.
individually, but it took putting them all together in the mix to hear the magic.
That was a huge leap of faith on his part, but for all of us, you know, really.
Yeah. He's been around. I guess he knows talent.
I'd sent him a demo of one of his tracks. I think it's Everything I Am. Well, I just sang my line, and then it was Neil, and the other part was Neil as well. but we never had. So I just wanted to hear how my voice blended with Neil's, because I'd never really heard that before.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I felt like it worked out. But then, like you said, we never heard all three stacked together until I guess the mix.
Right.
It's crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yep. The only thing you guys are missing for the third album, and forgive me, I may have said this to you before, I feel like I've said this to somebody before, is a curmudgeonly, politically oriented guy to join the band and be your Neil Young.
Aha. Yeah, we do need that.
Just
to history is to repeat itself. Then,
yes. If we can find one of those, I'll give him your email address. So, but anyway, sir, it's been a pleasure talking to you once again. It's so cool to find out about your interest in photography. I did not know we had that in common. So,
you learn something every day.
Indeed. I hope you get a chance to enjoy it a little bit and have it not be work.
Right.
You know, that would be very cool. But enjoy your time off. Enjoy your time with family. Get it every bit you can. Been there, done that myself. So I know how it can be. And you know, enjoy it, sir. Have a great break, and I wish you the best with Sophomore. I hope it hits. I hope it's big, or at least as big as the last one, and hopefully improves upon that. And hopefully we get to see you guys live. And meanwhile,
great, wouldn't it?
Look forward to March when I see you guys in New York.
Yeah, say hello.
Yes, indeed. Definitely. Great, Ross. Thank you. Take care, sir. Have a good day.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There you have it. Always a great time talking with Ross. I really enjoy our conversations. I enjoy talking with all the guys at Haken. They seem like a great bunch of guys. Probably be very cool to hang out sometime. And, you know, I definitely will stop in and say, hi, Ross. I'll take you up on that. So anyway, thank you once again, Ross, for joining me. I really appreciate your time again. And best wishes for the tour, for the album with DMJ. I hope they're both hugely successful for you. I certainly am going to do my part to help along with that as best I can. And I'll look forward to seeing you in New York. Meanwhile, take care. Enjoy your break. Enjoy being a dad. I'll see you on the other side next year. All right. For those of you watching, thank you for joining me once again. Check me out on the social medias. I'm out there on Facebook, Instagram /Threads, the artist formerly known as Twitter. All the links are down in the description, as well as you'll find a link in the description for my Live 365 channel, The Expanse. Nothing but progressive rock, progressive metal, progressive pop. If it's progressive, it's on there all day long. No interruptions, at least not much. A few commercials here and there. Got to pay some bills, right? But it's all there, from the classic to the brand new, the mellow to the metal. Got it all? And keep an eye on this channel. If you're of a mind, please do the things, the like and the subscribe and the bell, do all that stuff. And you can follow along. You'll see the videos that come up. You'll get the notifications when they happen. I tend to be a little sporadic, but been pretty consistent lately. And in between the interviews, I'll throw in some reaction videos and a few other fun stuff. So check it out. If you can follow along, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. So once again, thank you for joining me for Bleeding Edge Interviews. Appreciate it. This is Super Dave signing off.